That's nice. 10 seconds in, start burping into the microphone. Nicely done. Very professional. All right. Welcome to the office hours for March 13th. I'm Keith. We're here answering people-related questions. Not like, who's this famous person who died on, April 9th or whatever. No, not that kind of famous people question. People questions having to do with, ideally, issues one might encounter in the video games industry. So, I have before me 3 winners tonight. Probably any one of these you could probably spend an hour on. So the first question we're going to start with here. How do I handle an underperformer? Okay, so here's what you need to know about anytime you ask anybody a people-oriented question. Anything pertinent to the workplace, interpersonal relationships, difficult conversations, anything like that. If they start to give you a response and it begins with anything other than, it depends, they're probably way off base. Because you're talking about infinitely complex human beings. There's context that I don't have here. How do I handle an underperformer? Are we talking about someone in a particular discipline? How long have they been at the company? Is this their first job? How many years have they been at their particular level? Have they changed managers? Have they changed companies? All of these kinds of things. So much context that we don't have here. So I'll start with an example in mind. So I'm picturing a conversation that I had with a client a year or two ago. And this client was a game dev lead in a particular discipline. And he was recounting the story of somebody that he was dealing with who just was not getting to the level that he was hired to execute at. Okay. And this underperformer, we'll say, had been hired at level X plus 1, and he was really just barely squeaking by at level X. So the lead, my client, had been talking to this person apparently for something on the order of 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there, spending a lot of extra one-on-one time with them, really reducing the complexity of the tasks, implementing more hand-holding, doing many smaller steps, all of these kinds of things that you wouldn't expect for the person at the level that we hired them. But the lead had been doing this for almost half a year and approached me and said, hey, I don't really know, what are we supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to put them on a performance improvement plan? Should I be more patient with them? All of these kinds of things. And given the details that I had there, I said, listen, you are well past the point now, coming up on 6 months, well past the point at which we would expect any leader to spend time coaching somebody on their team. We are easily in the territory of this person is just not getting it. They will not be happy in the role where they are now because they are not performing at all, and we can't be paying them to meet a business need that continues to go unmet. So we need to either find a different place for them in the studio, or we need to help them find someplace else at another studio, because in this role, who they are today, with the level of competence they're showing, they can't stay here. What I told this lead was he had done a fantastic job of being patient with this person, of laying out extra steps, spending extra time with them, identifying where the skills gap was, and narrowing down on that and making sure to give this person some extra attention to get them to the level that we expected. So I told him that, great job. Doing it for almost half a year? No, absolutely not. That is, and these are gray areas here. We're dealing with the complexity of human beings, and so there's no hard cutoff. Exactly 113 days after you, no. I mean, you can't put numbers to a situation, just plug somebody into a formula. But easily, when you're coming up on half a year, that's in the territory of this person is not getting it, and we need to do something different. I would argue, as maybe a rule of thumb, again, depends so much on context, 90 days, 3 months at the most is what I could picture having to spend additional time and effort on somebody to coach them up to a level that you expect. And now, I will also say this was somebody who was hired at a certain level and had never displayed ability at that level. So maybe where they used to work, level X meant something different than it does at this studio. So they came in with that on their resume. That was their previous title. And it just meant something way different where they used to work than it does here. Maybe that was the case. I don't know. But this was not the case of we have somebody who's been performing at a certain level and we want to see them grow to reach the next level and they just don't seem to be getting it. It was never that. They just never performed at the level for which they were hired. So somehow we just did not properly evaluate their technical expertise from the beginning. So that was a case where basically you're saying within 90 days, we should be able to establish we made a hiring mistake. And we do something about that is not continue coaching somebody. So how do I handle an underperformer? Well, if it's within, again, just general rule of thumb, 90 days of hiring them, if they are not performing at the level that we expect, then we need to help them find someplace else where they will be happy because this ain't it. Because they're just not meeting the business need. Again, we've talked about this in the past. The reason you hire somebody is to fill a business need. And this person was not doing so. We can't keep paying them to not meet the needs that we hired them for. I will also say that there's a measure of responsibility on the organization here in that this is probably something that I see more often than not, we probably didn't do a great job of defining measures of success for this role from the outset. So that is something that I tell people they need to do before they put the job posting online, before they open that up and put it on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever. You need to sit down and identify. Here are the things that I recommend people have at the start of creating a job posting. What is the business need that is being met here? We are intending to hire someone. We are adding to our most significant expense at the company, that being the overhead of paying people salaries. We are adding to that expense. Why? Because the person we're going to pay is delivering more value than the salary we're paying them. They are meeting a critical business need. Okay, so we need to identify that. And then I suggest somewhere between 3 and 5 bullet points that indicate here's how they can know they are being successful in this role. Here are measures of success for this role. Then you can start filling out the rest of the job posting and then put it online. More often than not, most companies don't do that. They'll say something like, "Oh, we need a modeler. We need a network engineer. We need a VFX specialist." And they just get as far as, yeah, well, there's the title. Okay, so then let's put our standard blurb about, the studio and, benefits and then post it and we're done. And they never get as far as clearly identifying, at least to ourselves, what the business need is. And then don't proceed to actually list concrete measures of success that can allow this person to know they're doing a good job. All right, so we owe that to the person. My guess is we didn't have those in the case of this client I was discussing. We probably didn't lay those out at the beginning. They weren't super clear. Otherwise, the team member themselves could have known, okay, I am not, there are 5 things I'm supposed to be doing to indicate that I'm successful in this role, and I am clearly not hitting 2 of them. That would be the beginning of any sort of coaching. having less formal conversations, like in your one-on-ones, where you say, hey, I'm concerned about, we have these 5 measures of success for you. I'm concerned about these 2 that I'm not seeing you hit consistently. And that should start within the first few one-on-ones. So within the first several weeks of doing the work together, we should already be talking about which of our concrete measures of success we aren't hitting here. So that's a thing that the company owes, and they owe it to the team member to give them an equipped and engaged manager, a lead, who knows about the measures of success, has an idea of how to coach someone. So those are things that we owe the team member, and the team member owes us the honesty to not lie on their resume or whatever could have happened there. So how do I handle an underperformer? Well, it starts before you even hire them. What's the business need? What are the measures of success? And then certainly within the first few months, you should recognize if this person is having any difficulty hitting any of those measures of success. And you go from less formal, mentioning it in a one-on-one, to more formal, hey, here's some specific coaching sessions that you and I are going to have where I walk you through how you need to address your skills gap. And then, and this is the part where it gets tricky, then at some point you need to go, and this is not moving along quickly enough. You're not meeting the needs that we have for this role. So we're going to help you find a role someplace else where you'll be happy, because it's not going to work here. So that's, those are hard conversations for sure. And if you haven't trained your leads to recognize these sorts of skill gaps, to have difficult conversations, to have an idea of what coaching looks like, to give them support, to say, hey, you know what, if it doesn't happen within 90 days, you absolutely have the backing of the studio to raise this with your boss and say, I don't think this person's going to get the job done. We need to find somebody else. So there's a lot of support that the studio needs to provide to the manager as well as the team member. And those are some of the guidelines that I would say apply when we're talking about how do I handle an underperformer. And I mentioned having difficult conversations. So one of the key elements of having a difficult conversation is that you have it. You can't dance around it. You can't put so many pillows around the issue that they don't even know what you're talking about. You've got to be clear. Clarity is a gift. I've said that a bunch of times. You'll hear me keep saying it. You owe that team member the clarity of saying, these are the things that indicate you're being successful in the role, and you are not hitting these. So you got to be clear with them. I have worked at a place where folks were not clear. And all of the team members knew that this person was not getting the job done, but their boss never confronted them about it. They never received coaching. It's just, we find a way to shuffle them from one team to another, or one corner of a project or something where they're not on critical path, and we just keep them around because we're all too scared to talk to them. Don't do that. All right, how do I handle an underperformer? I've kind of talked that one to death, given the fact that I had little to no context to work on with that question. Hope it was helpful. Let's look at question 2 here. How am I supposed to deal with conflicting priorities? What if everything is top priority? Which we often feel that way, depending on how close you are to a milestone. It can often feel like we're in this scenario where I'm being told, yeah, Keith, you've absolutely got to make sure that your team does this, this, and this, because those are our top priorities. And oh, by the way, we just had this new fire show up, and that is also a top priority. So not only do you need to keep doing 100% of the things you're already doing, do this extra thing as well. And they're all as important as they possibly can be. And it's been said by wiser people than I that if everything is top priority, nothing is a top priority, which is accurate. If your boss can't tell you what the most important thing is for you to be working on, and they just say, no, it's all important, well, then it doesn't matter which thing I work on or which ball I drop. They're all equally important. So you don't do that. As a lead, You owe the people for whom you're accountable clear priorities. And I get that your boss maybe told you everything's important, get it all done. And then I'm saying, yeah, but then you have to somehow translate what your boss told you to your team, and you have to pick priorities because you owe them that clarity of saying, this is what's most important. And if you have to drop any of these balls, don't drop that one. So yeah, maybe you have to make a call. Maybe you have to take something where your boss said it's all important, and you have to just pick one and tell your team, okay, this is the most important. And then you're on the hook if some of those other things don't get done. That could happen. So part of the difficulty, I feel, there are a lot of difficulties here. Part of the difficulty with, hey, everything is top priority, is so many of us feel a sense of obligation to do it all. Like, my boss told me all the things have to get done, and none of them are less important than the others. So I have to get them all done. And this is how we get so many people overworking, right? Working nights and weekends for free, by the way, because you're salaried, so you don't get paid for the overtime. And pushing ourselves closer and closer to burnout because we have a sense of obligation to do all the things. So should our boss have told us, should they have told us to get everything done because it's all important, knowing that they're asking too much? No. A leader should not do that. Full stop. You should not be putting your people in a position where you are telling them to overwork themselves. Don't do that. Now, that's in an ideal world. I get it. There are times when we're up against the clock and we've got to ship a thing and it's got to go through certification or whatever the big deadline is that is outside of your control. And so you have to fix all the bugs. You have to get all the features done. You have to do whatever. I realize that there are harsh realities. And it is up to each of us to set healthy boundaries so that we don't endanger our well-being in the process of trying to do something that requires heroic effort. I think as an industry, and in most cases at the organizational level, we do not encourage people to set healthy boundaries. And this is an aspect of psychological safety. How safe do you feel where you work? Ever telling your boss, I'm sorry, but one of these 5 things won't be able to get done. I won't be able to do that in the time you need. Can you tell your boss that where you work? Or can you tell a client that? In a lot of cases, the answer is no. And we don't feel safe saying that. We feel like that's our job if we ever say something like that. Or I will never get a promotion or a raise, or that will show up in my bonus somehow. Not getting a bonus, maybe, if I say no. So that's a thing that we owe all of our team members when we are setting up the culture, when we are creating the environment in which they work. We need to tell people before day one, like, this is part of the onboarding packet. We encourage you to set healthy boundaries. We should train our managers to make sure that our people are good at setting boundaries and that we recognize them. So that's part of this. How am I supposed to deal with conflicting priorities when everything is the highest priority? Okay, so part of that is we need to be able to set healthy boundaries. So we need to be able to recognize, okay, I'm being told that 5 things have to happen before end of day tomorrow, and I know for a fact I cannot get all 5 of those done. Okay, so we need to be able to set healthy boundaries and say no. We, as leads, owe it to our team to give them a priority. You can't give people a whole bunch of things to do that are all equally important and nothing is less important. You don't do that to other humans. So even if you have to pick arbitrarily and then be on the hook for the results when your boss asks why something didn't get done. You owe your people that clarity. So give them clear priorities such that they know they don't have to get all 5 things done. Dealing with that as, let's say, an individual contributor. If I'm being given a whole bunch of things, I know I can't get all of them done. Something I should do, clarity I should give my boss, is to set that healthy boundary and say, listen, even overworking myself significantly, I can't get all these done in the time you've given me. So in the absence of any other direction, here are the priorities I'm going to go with. I'm going to fix this, and then I'm going to fix this, and then I'm going to fix this. And there's a lot of, it depends here, right? There's a lot of context that we don't have just from a simple question here. Is it the case that we could potentially, if we've given someone 5 things to do by tomorrow night, is it the case that possibly we could ship all 5 of those at 80%? Is that something that we can do? Or is it the case that, man, if any of these 5 things doesn't get driven to 100% completion, then it doesn't matter at all? If that's the case, then yeah, you just pick one and drive it all the way and then get to the next one. And if you only get that halfway done, okay, like that's the reality. But is it the case that it's better for us to get one of the things finished at 100% and then tackle the next and the next? Or can we somehow get, put in 50% or 80% on all 5 of them? I don't know. That's a context specific question there. But those are things that I would want to figure out as the individual contributor who's saddled with too much to do in not enough time and everything is top priority. I would try to get as much of that information as I can to know, okay, if I'm not getting told a priority, do I at least know which of these things can get turned in incomplete and which of them has to be turned in 100%? So that's something else I would look for if I'm trying to figure out the priorities of what to do in not enough time. Oh, let me think if there are other things I should talk to about. Should I say to speak to that point on everything is top priority? I think we covered the important ones. Clarity, setting boundaries, keeping people healthy. Yeah. Okay. There are probably other details I could get into if I had more context, but I don't, so we won't get into those. All right. So that was question 2. Question 3. I'm too busy to hire another engineer, but I'm supposed to be hiring somebody. I can't not get the work done, but that leaves me with no time to look at resumes or do interviews. What am I supposed to do? Okay. So I've seen this happen multiple times at clients where, let's say you're a lead engineer, you're the lead programmer, and maybe you have some engineers on your team already. You've been told, hey, we're ramping up production. We need to have more engineers. You're the hiring manager, so you need to be driving that process. But right now, there's so much work to do. Your team can't get it all done, and so you are picking up the slack, right? So you're already doing all of your management type stuff, and you are doing contributor work. Whatever's falling through the cracks, whatever your team can't handle, you are helping with those tasks. So you're already burning yourself out, basically. You're putting in more than 100% already. And you're supposed to be looking at resumes, doing interviews or phone screens or whatever. What are you supposed to do in that scenario? Well, again, it depends, right? There's a lot of context that we don't have here. I would say that if you think of this from the standpoint of the priority discussion we just had, of all the things that have to get done. There's management level stuff you need to do for your team of engineers. You need to be interpreting backlog items for them. You need to be decomposing big tasks. Maybe you actually assign work, or maybe it's kind of self-organized by your engineers. I don't know. But there's all that kind of management stuff. You have to go to leads meetings and whatever. Okay, so you have manager kind of stuff. And then you've got who knows how many tasks have to get done, right? All of this work. Bug count has to get done or whatever. Okay. So then you've got all the work, which your team is supposedly responsible for, but they have too much to do, so you're picking up some of that. So you've got manager stuff, you've got the work, and then you've got the things you haven't even started, trying to hire somebody. What do we know in terms of priorities? We just finished saying you can't have everything be top priority. So is that some level of clarity that you can get from your boss? Hey, I need to know if one of these 3 things doesn't get done by the end of the month, which one would you pick, right? Is it getting all these bugs done? Is it me hiring somebody? Whatever. If they aren't giving you those priorities, if they just say, hey, listen, it's your department, figure it out, which sadly is not an unreasonable thing to be told, then that's on you. You're the lead. You've got to figure that out. So that's a double-edged sword, right? In that you have a measure of autonomy there to make your own call. Well, what am I going to determine is the priority here? And you have to live with the results. So, for instance, if you decided to deprioritize hiring someone because short term, you know that by the end of the month, you can contribute this much effort, you can take care of some of the gnarliest bugs while the rest of your team is handling less complex stuff, and that gets you to whatever you consider an acceptable finish line at the end of the month. Okay, well then that's the choice you made. What does that mean for you? Well, it means in the near term, like the next 2 to 4 weeks, for starters, you're setting a terrible example for your team because you're overworking yourself, and they will derive their idea of what's culturally acceptable from what they see their leader doing. That's you. So we're already showing the team that, hey, it's okay to overwork yourself if somebody says there's a tough deadline and there's too much to do. Is that really a message you want to send to your team? No, but that's what you're doing already. And you are setting back your ability to lighten your load with a new team member by X number of weeks, right? That's not going to just magically happen the day after the end of the month. You're not going to magically hire somebody that day. So you're setting that back several weeks. And maybe in the intervening time, you aren't even able to pay appropriate attention to all of your managerial duties. Are you having one-on-ones with all of your team members during that time? Or is everything shunted aside in favor of just get the bugs fixed? So that's a possibility that happens. What if we go the other route? What if you say, listen, I've just got to have more humans here to delegate to, and that's got to be my top priority? One of the more important things to consider there is timeline. In this scenario, for instance, if we're in the first week of the month and you're trying to get bug count down, get that count down by the end of the month. All right, at most you're talking 4 weeks. There is no way, if you're starting from scratch, like I haven't looked at a resume yet, there is no way that you can perform proper due diligence in an interview process and get somebody hired and on the team and spun up in time to help you by the end of the month. There is no world in which that is going to go well. So in that scenario, I would say, okay, well, kind of depends on what happens after the end of the month, but at the very least, Me hiring somebody is not going to help us get the bug count down by the end of the month. So, were I looking down the barrel of that, I would probably say, all right, well, then we're all just going to buckle down. We're going to fix the bugs that we can. And then come first of next month, let me tell you, I'm not doing all the contributor stuff. Y'all need to pick that up yourselves somehow because I need to focus on hiring somebody. So that's probably how I'd, if we're in a scenario where now we've got like 90 days. Okay, well, that is enough time for you to get some candidates screened, get some interviews, hire somebody. You have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks for them to get to become available, to get onboarded, and another couple of weeks for them to at least get up to date on, hey, here are your credentials. Here's the Git repo. Here's bug tracker. Here's Jira, whatever, and get them contributing. Like that could potentially happen within 90 days. So in that scenario, probably I would try to say, all right, everybody, the bug count is that's all on you and the rest of the team for the next like 3-4 weeks, because I have to focus on getting this job posting out here and interviewing some people and trying to get some candidates lined up so that we can add to this team, so that in the final month of our 3 months, we will have somebody else here who can help us. So that's 90 days. That's probably closer to the time frame that I would consider it's worth prioritizing getting the new person here. I would still feel pretty ooky because 90 days is rushing a lot of things and stuff has to go really well, but you at least have a shot. And the sooner you can get somebody else added so that you, the lead, aren't also acting as a contributor, the sooner you can make that happen, the better. Now, what I will also say is this. There's a really good chance that even if you hired that new person today, that you or the project or the organization or the publisher or whoever would find a way to put you in another tough spot so that you still had too much to do, even though you had another person helping. So there's a question here as to, okay, how did you get into a scenario where you, the lead, are overworked? And what makes you think you wouldn't get into that scenario again, even if you had more people on your team helping out? So those might be deeper questions that we're getting into there. So maybe there are boundaries that you as the lead need to figure out how to set. Maybe your boss isn't being clear enough with priorities. Maybe you are in an unworkable situation with a business partner and we didn't set in place a clear enough contract with them that says, hey, don't overwork us even though we are a service provider for you. Who knows what sort of things could have happened there, but it's absolutely worth spending a couple minutes doing some root cause analysis to figure out, hey, even if I had a new person on the team right now, what makes me think I won't be back in this situation again within a week or two? So how do we know that's not going to happen? So those are some things that get more into your other aspects of your life as a professional, other aspects of how the studio or how the organization does business. And you maybe have to think to yourself, okay, well, if I have no reason to believe I won't be back in this same mess, even with more people on the team, because it happened on the last project and it happened 2 years ago and it's happening now or whatever, right? Like whatever data you have to suggest to you that just hiring somebody is not going to fix this problem. You should be asking yourself, is it a good idea for me to stay in an environment where this is likely to occur again? That's a highly privileged question to even be able to ask, right? Oh yes, I'll just willingly give up my employment because it's non-ideal, Keith. That's a reasonable thing to do, especially in 2024, where just about every third person in the industry has been laid off. I get it, and you absolutely have to make your own decisions about your life, about your values. The question there does become, okay, well, if you're basically saying, do I have to choose between staying employed at this company, staying employed in this industry? Do I have to choose between that and my health? Okay, so then should you stay in this industry? Like, if that's where you feel you are, I can tell you there are plenty of people who've been in that situation and have shied away from thinking that through, or they did think it through and just made the wrong decision. And say, no, I got to stay employed. Like, I can't not work in games, or I can't not work at this company for whatever reason. And they look back on that 3, 6, 12 months later and go, it was not worth it. There are plenty of horror stories of burnout out there where people have taken months to recover. And if you ask them now, hey, did you make the right decision staying employed instead of quitting for your health and finding something to do somehow, making ends meet in a healthier way? There are people out there, I guarantee you, who would say, yeah, I made the wrong call. I should have left. If that was my only option, my job or my health, I should have chosen my health. So don't think you're the exception. Don't think you're invincible. Oh, that'll never happen to me. I'll never get burned out to the point that I need hospitalization. There are a non-zero number of people that has happened to. So that got dark pretty quickly. Didn't mean for us to go there, but the point remains that we're looking at kind of near-term, immediate priorities. If I have so much to do that I can't even hire somebody to help me do all of the work. Okay, so near-term priorities, based on whatever the most immediate deadline is, could hiring somebody even occur quickly enough to help me out in this time frame? Okay, so we're thinking about that. Slightly longer term, okay, maybe if we got somebody in here quickly, they could help alleviate the workload. Okay, so then maybe I focus on the hiring the new person. Okay, maybe. And you need to spend some time thinking, okay, but even if I had that person, what is the probability that I would find myself back in this situation again in 6 months, a year, whatever? Even with someone else on the team, would I find myself in this position of being overworked? And what are the environmental factors that are likely to make that happen? Okay, so that is something you should at least think about. I'm not telling you right now you got to make some sort of decision about quitting the industry or whatever. But you should make that consideration at some point, even if I hired somebody, even if they were amazing and they took a bunch of workload off my shoulders. How do I know what makes me think I wouldn't be back in this situation again, having too much to do? And now I'm just picking up the slack for a team of N+1 programmers instead of N programmers. Okay, well, so what did we go over tonight? We talked about how to handle an underperformer. We talked about how do I deal with conflicting priorities when everything is top priority. What do I do? And then if I'm too busy to hire another engineer, but I'm supposed to be hiring somebody, I can't not get the work done. What am I supposed to do? So we talked about that some also. Some of these things are kind of interlinked. A lot of people issues tend to be interrelated. So I'm not overly surprised there. Hopefully these questions and answers have been helpful to somebody. And feel free to submit some more through the Google Doc or show up here in the chat next time. And that having been said, you can look for this recording on the YouTube channel. and we'll catch you next time.